Here with me for another installment of Talk Talent Me from the floor of the Expo Hall at TA Week is the founder of Quintrix Solutions, Krishna Kumar. Krishna, welcome to the podcast. How the heck are you?
Good. How are you?
Really great. Having fun here on day two. It's been an exciting show. How has it been for you so far?
It's been amazing. The weather's finally looking up, and it's a great day here in San Diego area.
What do you make of the content and the presentations you've seen so far?
I think it's really exciting, especially I'm seeing a lot more attention to diversity and early talent. We've never seen this level of interest and emphasis on these topics, at least in the past, so super pumped about that.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I feel like diversity comes up a lot, but do you think it's the early talent piece specifically you're hearing more about?
I think early talent has not been leveraged as much in the past, both from diversity as well as from incubation perspective. And it's starting to gain traction simply because we only have finite experienced talent. So someone's going to have to incubate and invest in early talent, and that's really a great alternative for us to build a future pipeline for the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And comes up on this podcast periodically, this notion that companies want to invest in DE&I, but they say, oh, there's just less of these individuals out there to be hired. You know, that's why they get this classification as a minority population, right? Okay, fair enough. But if that's true, if we assume that that's correct, what are you doing, company, to increase that amount of people, right? To build pipelines so that these individuals are there to be hired in greater numbers in the future. And then, crickets, like probably nothing. And that's why I was really excited to speak with you, Krishna, because that is sort of the aim of your company, right?
Correct.
Would you mind just giving the log line to the folks at home in case I just kind of bundled it right there?
We are a company that's driven by a mission of creating 10,000 diverse and job-ready candidates, tuition-free. That's really the mission that we wake up every day and go to work and get excited about. What I have noticed is enterprises and agencies are trying to solve for the sourcing problem all the time, but not necessarily thinking about the investment and creation piece. And rightly so. For example, a large enterprise like a bank, their core functionality is banking, right? To deliver the best services and products to their customers, and not necessarily be experts in HR and talent development and training.
Yeah, and it seems like these companies would be incentivized to develop talent that they could be hiring in the future, but as you say, they're often not actioned to do it. So the alternative would be, okay, can they bring all those folks in-house? Can they have some sort of like education piece to their business? Or probably what maybe would make more sense would be to work with a partner like you, rather than bringing that in-house to outsource that to its own organization.
Different enterprises, organizations do this at different scale. Some are obviously further ahead than the others. But what I noticed, especially when times are tougher and the macroeconomics don't work out, these are the programs that get negatively affected the first. In fact, I was on a call this morning with a very large retailer, and they're going through this exact same situation. They hired a new head of early talent development, but the budgets just don't support the type of investments that are required to be able to hire the right talent, to be able to train them, to provide all the mentorship that's needed. Because it's not just technical training, right? It's a lot of what I call power skills, a lot of soft skills, and professional development, honestly. And all of that takes resources and time, and there's not always a business incentive for large enterprises to do that.
Not in the short term, surely.
Not in the
right?
short term.
And these companies can be short-sighted, or the individuals at them can be short-sighted because they have monthly, quarterly, yearly goals to hit, and they're like, well, I'll worry about our talent pipeline in 2025.
Exactly.
In 2025, I got these hires right in front of me. But you have an interesting background because you were not in like the talent space really prior to this company. Could you share a little bit about your background and what made you decide, look, this is a unique problem I need to focus on?
I spent the first 10 years of my career in banking technology, really working with large banks to be able to create softwares and applications to solve really automation problems, right? To convert these large Excel sheets and multiple application workbooks into cohesive, seamless, enterprise-wide applications. And as part of doing that, I was working with both tech teams and business teams, and I very quickly came to realize that talent shortage is significantly stifling business growth. Hiring managers are not able to hire talent as quickly as they want to, and the business impact is almost instant, right? If you don't have the resources to complete a project, then that's a project you can do, and that results in fewer customers, less revenue, and truly has an impact on the bottom line. So that's why this conference is so exciting, because people are now truly starting to think about talent from a long-term pipeline building perspective versus just-in-time instant gratification mindset. And truly it has to come from the top leadership, right? Because you can't blame the line managers. They just want to have their projects done, right? They need to have tasks completed. They need to have deadlines met. So putting that burden on your line managers to be able to attract and retain talent is in some ways unfair.
Yeah, of course. When you think about the talent you are developing, is it mostly technical skills, hard skills where they're deficient, or why are these people not being qualified or not viewed as qualified for some of these roles?
I think there is a significant gap between academic knowledge and real world. I think we all know this, but we truly experience this as we've trained hundreds of candidates that go through our training program. And it's not just technical, right? College is really great for giving you an overall life experience, teaching you varied skills, but not necessarily job-specific skills. And that's why I think apprenticeship programs have gained traction that they truly deserve. And our model is a twist on apprenticeship programs, just making it less burdensome for enterprises to adopt. But at the core, that's what it is, right? Is to upskill candidates for job-specific skills.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a deficiency on both sides of the hiring on the part of the organization. So on the one side is like, okay, you're not developing the talent. And then on the other side, say you actually do manage to make hires from underrepresented groups. Are they going to succeed at your company? Like, has the training been put in place? Are they going to be able to succeed, or are they just going to walk into some fresh professional trauma? It's just a very narrow scope I see with regards to D&I, which is just find the existing individuals who have the existing skills and hire them, and then done. Wipe your hands of it. We did it. We hit all our D&I goals. Could I ask you about the other side of it? So the talent development part makes a lot of sense. I'm also curious the support for individuals like this once they get into an organization that historically has not had folks in it that look like them.
It's such a great question, and I'm glad you asked. The first few years of us developing this model that we call recruit, train, deploy, we realized that we were solving for the first two pieces of the puzzle, right? Which is the recruitment piece and the training piece. But when these candidates actually were placed on the job, we realized that not all supervisors or managers were equipped or necessarily trained to develop early talent. That's not their core skill set. That's not what they've been doing in their career, for example. And it's very ad hoc, right? And the most common feedback we would get is, hey, the candidate's not scaling up fast enough, or the candidate is not being proactive. And then when we look at some of the feedback, we realize that it's more of a communication and expectation gap. And we took this as a problem that we could totally solve for, because we had this first-hand data, and our L&D team created what we call a post-deployment framework. And essentially it is both personal goals and work goals that each associate would have to develop in conjunction with his manager. Just to give you an example, we work with a Fortune 500 company that was having a attrition issue with early talent. We implemented this post-deployment framework, which, by the way, also includes a peer mentoring program. And within 90 days, attrition dropped to zero. And that's something we haven't experienced in the past. And I think the numbers speak for themselves. Can we sustain that attrition rate forever? I don't know, but just A/B testing this seems to be working, and we're going ahead and deploying this post-deployment support framework literally across all our employer partners as a default. It's not something they have to necessarily pay additional fees for. It's just something we do as part of our career development. And Rob, you and I know that career development is the number one reason, or lack of it, for people to really leave their jobs and explore other opportunities, right? So we want to make sure these candidates are constantly receiving the support, feedback, and the career development to be successful.
You gave the example that hiring managers were reporting folks weren't proactive enough. Now, is that a deficiency on the part of the talent? Like, oh, they ought to know to go try and find other projects? Or is it on the hiring manager to be like, this is what I mean when I say I want you to be proactive? I guess it's both, right?
It's both, and that's why I think it's important to create a framework where hiring managers can report their feedback in a quantifiable way rather than something generic like, hey, they're not proactive or they're not scaling up, because that could mean a million different things. It goes without saying that not all associates that make it to our employer partners are 100% successful, right? There will be situations where things don't work out, but as long as we keep that to a minimal, acceptable level, I think we're doing our job. And I think this post-deployment framework, which I think is very unique to this industry, is going to be a game changer.
Yeah, it's definitely sorely needed and overdue, I would say. I keep going back to this example of just the expectations of talent in a role, and something like being proactive, something like trying to find ways to make your boss's life easier. These are things that you kind of know to do, having had lots of experience in the workplace, right? But no one's trained you on that. It's just like, in my case, you kind of put that together, or you receive that advice from a VP or something a few years into your career. But we ought to look at that as like a skill, like just navigating a workspace and putting yourself in the best position to make your boss look good and for you to succeed. Those are skills too, right? That is a professional skill that if someone doesn't have for not having the experience of it, well, how would they know to do it? So are you offering that kind of support too? Is that like a soft skill we ought to be training for?
You're spot on. Yeah, it's part of our framework to make sure that starting week one, everything is defined. Everything from communication cadence to what we call work velocity. So how long should someone sit on a task before asking for help? It's another very common problem that you and I probably take for granted, because we have this innate sense, having worked in the industry for years, to ask help at the appropriate time. But someone who just started their career may not necessarily know where to draw the line. So just having that open, transparent conversation with your hiring manager makes a huge impact. And just look at it from the candidate's perspective, that if you show up for the first week of work and you walk into the door with a 30, 60, 90-day plan and share that with your manager, set up weekly calls and get buy-in from him on what the expectations are, you're going to look so good in the organization. Your boss is going to be like, wow, who is this guy? Where did we find him? Kind of a thing. But it's so basic and it's so important that it's often overlooked.
Absolutely. Krishna, before I let you go, I would love to know from you, what is the best career advice you have ever received?
I would say more than advice, this is something I've read. This is a quote from Bill Gates, where he says that people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10. So just having a more long-term vision is critical.
Yep, I love that advice too. Krishna, this has been fantastic. I think your company is so needed, and I'm thrilled to hear that you are taking this on. So thank you for being here with me today and chatting about it. I've loved meeting you.
I appreciate your time here. Thanks.